Morning, it's Dave T1963. I keep getting questions about how you tune a bow with your fletching. And you can do this with either field points or broadheads. And I'm going to say it again. I'm not opposed to bare shaft tuning. You can do that if you want. What I'm saying is, if you don't have really consistent form that you can repeat time after time after time, you're going to get all kinds of results with bare shaft tuning. But here's how you can go about tuning your bow with a fletch shaft. Okay, and I think it is, for the average archer, a superior method because the fletching will help stabilize your arrow. And all you do, how I do it is I grab either a 400, 500, whatever I think is appropriate for my bow. I put in the weight that I want to shoot. So for me, it's always a 100 grain brass insert and a 200 grain broadhead. That's what I shoot. So if I'm using a field point, I do the same thing. I use a 100 grain brass insert and a 200 grain field point. I stand back 20 yards. I work on my form and make sure that I'm getting a good release and not plucking the string, not dropping my bow arm. I put a golf ball down on my dirt pile that's 20 yards away and I shoot at it. I look exactly where I want that to go. If you use like split vision, you can do the alignment and all that. And then I shoot 3 arrows. If they're all over the target, that tells me my form wasn't good. I repeat it. But if I get a pretty good group, it tells me what I need to do. The same as bare shaft tuning. If all 3 of my arrows are left of the line that I want to hit, then I know that my shaft setup the way it currently is too stout. It's too strong. The spine's too strong. So you either increase your point weight, which I do not do, or you grab a lighter spine. So let's say I tried it with 340 shafts. And all 3 of my arrows shot to the left. I'm going to go down to a 400. That's what I'm going to do. All right. And I repeat the process. If it shoots to the right, that tells you you're weak. Now you can cut, a quarter, eighth of an inch, whatever, and slowly walk back the length of your arrow until your arrows are hitting where you want to shoot. I guarantee you, if you do that, and same with the knock high and knock low. If your arrows, your fletched arrows are constantly hitting high, raise your knock point up a little. If they're constantly hitting low, raise it down a little, okay? And figure that out. I guarantee you get an arrow that flies straight and flies exactly where you're looking at, and you strip off that fletching, it's going to bare shaft good. There's no doubt about it, okay? But what's more important to me is I don't care if I have the best spined arrow if it's not hitting where I'm looking. And unless you use shooting an ILF where you can move the shelf plate in and out, you can have a well-matched spined arrow that flies brilliantly out of your bow, bare shaft, but it don't impact when you fletch it the same. And the same is true when you add a broadhead to it. So me personally, what I do is I usually do all my tuning with my bow with my broadhead. From the very get-go, I figure out what arrow I want to use. I know what point weight I want to use. I know what fletching I want to use. I put together an arrow that I think is going to work out of that bow. I put the broadhead I'm going to shoot on it, and I go out and I shoot at that golf ball. And I tune it to that bow to where it's hitting exactly where I'm looking. And like I said, if your arrows are flying all over the place, that's a form issue. Okay? Now, with some cheap carbon arrows, there is a minor deviation in the spine if you rotate the shaft, and you can try knock tuning and all that if you want. But me personally, I screw on a broadhead and I go shooting. If I can get that thing to where I'm shooting within an inch or two of that golf ball consistently, that arrow is tuned for my bow. And I guarantee you, as soon as I unscrew that broadhead and put a field point on it, it's going to fly the same. It's going to fly good. So it's just, I go about things, I guess, the total opposite how most people are going. They want to bare shaft, and then they do a fletch shaft, and then they go to a broadhead. And usually if they're honest, they have to do tweaking every time they change. I just do the exact opposite. I shoot the broadhead arrow first and get that flying exactly perfect. And what I find is when I screw a fill point on it, it flies to the same spot. And when I strip the fletching off, it flies to the same spot. To me, it's a far easier way to tune an arrow that hits where I look. And to me, that is the most important thing. It's not how well an arrow flies out of your bow. It's how well and consistently that arrow flies straight and to the point you're looking at, or if you're using sights or whatever it's aiming at with my broadhead on it. Because quite frankly, I'm not a target archer. I have no desire to go out and compete with that. I'm a bow hunter. My goal is to get my broadhead arrows to hit where I'm shooting and to fly good. And I do that through broadhead tuning with fletched arrows. Okay? Very simple process. It's basically the same thing. You're getting to the same end result if you're a bow hunter. It's just you're not going through 3 tuning methods. Some people use 4. They'll do a bare shaft, and they'll do paper tuning, and then they screw on their fill, or they fletch their arrows, and they might have to tweak it a little bit more because fletching can cause interference and stuff that you're not going to see with a bare shaft or with a bare shaft paper tuning. And then when you put a broadhead, you put those wings out front, it can also affect that arrow. Adding fletching can affect that arrow. So why not start with your completed hunting arrow? That's my whole point. For the average archer, that to me is the best way to get your bow set up for bow hunting. And no one's going to change my mind. I've been doing this a long time. And I have bare shafted. I still bare shaft at times. I've paper tuned. I never paper tune anymore. To me, that's an absolute waste of time. I've done it to where I've done the walkback shooting with the fletched and the bare shaft. I've done it with walkback with fletched and broadheads. And I'm telling you flat out, if I start out with just the hunting arrow I'm going to hunt with, and the broadhead and the fletching I'm going to use, and I get that perfected and tuned to that bow, it gets me to the same end point as all the other stuff. Okay? That's all I'm saying. You can do whatever tuning method you want, and if it makes your heart happy that where you think that a bare shaft that straightens out quickly and flies straight is your best arrow, then go with that. I don't see any difference than a fletch shaft that straightens your arrow out of the same bow and flies to where you're looking. It's the same thing. It's we make archery so complicated these days. Grab your hunting arrow, screw your broadhead in it, and as long as you're reasonably matched to begin with, you're going to be able to tune that arrow to your bow. And, you know, a lot of times I don't see any of this talked about because everyone's wanting to shoot these ILF bows with center shot, and that's a totally different process. Okay, I'm talking about shooting regular traditional bows. You can't move your sight window in and out, and unless you're shooting an elevated rest, you're not going to move your shelf up and down without minor adjustments. You can tune your bow through nock point, brace height, and also the material that you use on your shelf and your side plate. For instance, if you use hard leather, that's going to make your arrows the spine's going to be a lot stiffer. If you use something like the old Bear Weather Rest on the side plate, that's going to make your spine weaker. The arrow's going to move. In other words, when you shoot at your line, it'll move your impact point to the right. If you use Velcro, it's going to be in the middle between hard leather and that Bear Weather Rest because it's the softness. It absorbs some of the energy of that arrow bending around the bow. You can do that on your shelf and you can do it on your side plate. So you can tune your arrow to your bow as long as you start out within reason. And I'm telling you, with most bows that are cut to center, it's not like one spine is all you're limited to. I can shoot 400s, I can shoot 500s, and I can shoot 340s out of the majority of my 50 to 55 to 60 pound bows. I might have to move the length of the arrow a little bit and tweak that. And I might have to tweak my shelf material and my rest material. I might have to bump my brace height in and out a little bit. And I might have to move my nock point, especially if the arrow width it varies. Your nock point might need adjustment. There's many ways to get there, folks. But what I'm saying is, why not start with the hunting arrow you're going to hunt with and tune that for your bow? Because you know that if you're shooting instinctive or if you're shooting gap or whatever, if that arrow's flying straight, which it will with adequate fletching, and it hits where you're looking, what more do you want? What more do you want? I would much rather have an arrow that flies 5 feet per second because I'm using a little bit more fletching, but it flies straight and hits where I'm looking, where I'm aiming. I would much rather have that than to have a 5 or 10 feet per second faster arrow with small fletching that may or may not fly where I'm looking. It really depends on how perfect everything is. So do what you want to do. You know, you don't have to listen to me, but for those of you who just want to get to a good hunting arrow, give that method a try. You know, use the charts, figure out what's best. Don't go to extremes. You know, don't try to push limits. Get the best shaft those charts tell you for your bow. Start out with them about 2-3 inches longer than your draw length. Put in your insert that you're going to use. Put in the exact broadhead you're going to use. Fletch it the way you're going to hunt with it. Put the nock on it that you're going to use. Don't put a gold tip nock in and then put a nocturnal in after your tune. Use what you're going to hunt with. Get a dirt pile. Put a target out there that's small. And go shoot your arrows at it, and let where your arrows are impacting tell you what you need to do. And like I said, if they're hitting here, here, and here, work on your form. Get the form down, because you're not going to get a consistent, accurate reading on how well your arrow's tuned to your bow until your form can produce consistent results. Okay, and fletching, that's going to help with that. I guarantee you. It's much easier to get consistent groupings with fletch shafts than it is bare shafts. Okay? Let target archers worry about getting groups with bare shafts. If you will try that and give it a go and work on your form, I guarantee you're going to get arrows that fly naturally for how you shoot. And to me, that's going to give you a lot more confidence when you're out there bow hunting. That's all I can say about it. Give it a shot. Or not. Dave T1963 out.